Hey, Rennie Joe here, and welcome back to ROCKTOBER, where throughout the month of October we've been listening to nothing but rock albums for the first time. And as of course, this is always first reactions, so I never know exactly what I'm getting into. That being said, I know a little bit about what I'm getting into today, even though I've never listened to it in full, and that of course being Oasis' 1995 record, What's the Story, Morning Glory. Now of course, like many, I know Oasis's biggest hit, that being Wonderwall at 2.1 billion streams, with a B, keep in mind. That being said, I'm not quite familiar with the rest of this record, and there's a good reason for that. Because truthfully, even though this was suggested from a fan, this is not an album I would necessarily go out of my way to listen to or seek out on my own. Simply because, as I've expressed before on this channel, although not too often, I am not the biggest fan of Britpop as a whole. Most of what I've heard within the Britpop genre has not tickled my fancy, as they may say over on their side of things. However, there are some albums that I do enjoy, such as the Divine Comedy's album Casanova, which I gave quite a positive review a while back on the channel. Still, however, I do want to give Oasis a real shot here. I've never listened to this album in full. Maybe it will surprise me, and maybe I'm being too harsh and judgmental on Britpop simply because the hits of the genre aren't necessarily for me, such as Wonderwall, which is a track that, truthfully, I honestly can't stand, but I think it's just because of its, ridiculous overplaying. I'm sure on its own, without its overplaying, it would be a far greater track in my opinion and wouldn't feel as tarnished. So I'm trying not to hold it against it, and I thought, hey, let's be real here. Let's be open. Here's your chance to shock me, awe me, and turn me around as a Britpop, I would say, frequent hater, perhaps. Kicking it off though, 50-minute album, 12 tracks. First track here is Hello. I am looking forward to, before we start, I know I'm yapping away this video, but before we start, I will say I do know that, if I'm not mistaken, they take a lot of influence from 60s pop and take a lot of influence from the Beatles. Some would say Oasis is the 90s Beatles. So going into that, thinking of that, maybe I will be more impressed looking in that direction. Hello, though, let's start. I was gonna say, was that not Wonderwall? Maybe that's teasing what's to come. Jesus Christ. Far noisier than I would have expected. Bit of a live sort of sound to it. Much noisier than I'm used to from Oasis. This is really kicking things off with a really raw, kind of visceral guitar sound. Pretty straightforward lyricism on this one, but I think what's taking me back the most is like just the very high voltage, feedback driven sort of guitar playing throughout this thing, kind of leading in to a little bit of like kind of noise in a sense, especially like early noise is what I'm thinking, the very feedback driven sense of it, but simplistic overall songwriting, but I think that's to their benefit. Let's go into roll with it. Let's keep it going. Let's roll into it. No, that was a bad one. The joke, not the track. Hello is a decent track, all in all. It kicks off the album with a bit of an introduction of sorts. It feels like it's just setting the stage, quite literally, with a very live sound. I like the backup vocals. The live quality, the way the album is mixed, is so much like it's very different than I feel like I would have expected from this record. It's not as, I guess, intentionally polished. I think that is kind of working to its benefit. It really adds a very, again, very alive, visceral, raw feel to it. Maybe a result of... I do think there's got to be some result of the loudness war of CDs back then. Kind of really like crushing the mix at times. I don't know. It's sort of working to its benefit in some ways, but at the same time, I feel like it is a little too ear-piercing for me, even trying to turn the volume down. Just the mixing overall. I love it. It's very harsh, very kind of messy and fuzzy. So, I don't know. We'll see how this album grows on me as it plays. But, oh, it's loud. It's so loud. Okay. I'm sorry. Like... Okay. I'm feeling similar how I feel with that opener. It's so compressed and like crushed out, the production, the mixing on this record. What is it? I've turned it down. I've changed the volume in both Spotify and on my computer. And even looking online, it seems like it's just the production of the album and the result of maybe the loudness wars that really resulted in this album having such a compressed sound, and it is very jarring for me. I listen to a lot of harsh music, but I feel like when it's not intentional, it just feels kind of muffled and messy. The production here, I'm sorry. If you're a huge fan of this record, I'd apologize right now. This album is super just blown out. But let's go into Wonderwall. We know Wonderwall. There's nothing to preface it with. It's Wonderwall. Like, production-wise, it's certainly adding, like I said, to the very live aspect of this record. It feels very, there and imminent. Today is gonna be the day that they're gonna throw it back to you. Even that slight reverb on his voice, kind of adding to this live feel. You know what, though? I said earlier that I'm not a fan of this track because of its overplayed sort of aspect, but I can't deny. Lyrically, I think this track is fantastic. I do. And I think vocally, performance-wise, this is, if I'm not mistaken, Liam still, correct? Yes. He does a fantastic job. I think he is a great performer. I think he certainly fits the track. And I think lyrically and melody-wise, this is a beautiful song. I can't fault it for its overplaying. Really, I just fault the rest of society for tearing it to bits and for white guys everywhere with novice guitar playing, playing this at parties. Backbeat, the word is on the street that the fire in your heart is out. And the mixing on this one, I think, is actually better so far. And I like those strings that come in. It's a very sweet song. It's a very cute song. But again, production is just messy and a little flat. Putting a little bit too much dependence on this person, I would say. A mistake of many. I always like that part. Always love the backup vocals here. I think it adds A lot of flavor, a lot of substance to the track that is still, for the most part, I would say a pretty straightforward, sweet, overall flat track. But still, again, I think it executes itself perfectly. It's maybe a bit too sappy for my taste, but I respect it. I think it's pretty much like, I feel like the pinnacle of 90s sort of pop rock. And certainly the pinnacle of Britpop, really. And this final passage. The next track here, lead vocals from Noel Gallagher, which I don't know what he sounds like, to be honest. I don't remember him. Personally, I can't really pick out his voice, so I'll see how he sounds up against his brother. But also, before we get into it, 956 million streams. I don't know if I know this one. Maybe I'll play it and it'll ring some bells. But I know Wonderwall for sure. And I think, as much as I was harsh at the beginning of this video on Wonderwall, it does have a lot going for it, such as, like I said, iconic songwriting. I do think it is a very well-written, sweet, poppy tune that, unfortunately, like a lot of great tracks, its greatest fault, its most damaging aspect, is really the media and society overplaying it, which can do a lot of damage to a track. But if you could put that aside and take it for what it is, Wonderwall, like a lot of songs that are overplayed, are still fantastic. Don't Look Back in Anger. Do I know this one? I wonder. Not ringing any bells yet. They sound very similar vocally. Maybe Noel's a bit deeper. Oh, I like that kind of cheeky line. I really like his voice. It's got a bit of a more of a distinction from Liam. I don't know this song. Just upon listening to it here, it doesn't ring any bells, but I could see this most likely was in something that I've watched before. It feels like very much a movie tie-in track. Ooh. I thought there'd be more visceral kind of a belt there, but I mean, still liked it. Again, very muffled production. I think it's a little dated. I like the chorus on here quite a bit. Is this the chorus? Is the bridge? Whatever it is, I'm liking it a lot. I think it's quite cheeky, a little tongue-in-cheek. Oh, what a great chorus! I love this chorus. Probably not a hot, take, given the amount of streams here, but it's catchy, and it's a little bit more edgy compared to Wonderwall. A bit more of my vibe. Film is quite sweet. The guitar, it's on full display there, but that display has been pushed as far back as possible. You're squinting to look in that window because it's such a muffled mix here. Again, I think this album is a little, either dated or just wasn't mixed to the best extent. I'm sorry, I'm not a huge fan of the mixing here. It is a little too cluttered, messy, and muffled when it feels like at times certain aspects are supposed to be a little bit more focused. They're just not. So, I don't know. Sue me. But I do love this chorus. Got a nice swang sound to it. And I like that drum. It's so buried. Oh. I like that. So soft. Very delicate finish. Ooh, our bassist here? Is that a bassist? That bass there was, who was that? Who was the bassist on track 4? Oh, this guy here. Paul McGeegan? Giggsy? Am I saying that right? Either way, I like that bass lick at the end of the track there. You know what? Let's go back real quick. Let's just talk about Don't Look Back in Anger. That's a great track. Reservations aside about the mix, I think it's a fantastic track. I think it, has a great chorus. I think it's catchy. I think it has a nice swang tune. I love the quiet finish, and that bass line really just wraps it all up in a nice bow. It certainly stood out a lot more than the first two tracks, and is a bit more unique to me than Wonderwall, which, not hard to do. Hey Now is this one here with an exclamation point. Right back to that visceral guitars. Certainly, like early Beatles, early 60s Beatles, kind of coming through in these tracks, I would say, influence-wise. Very sweet and poppy. Again, very grating guitars, and vocally, just kind of like slightly muffled, brought to the forefront, but it feels like there's like no power or oomph behind the mixing here. My apologies for how negative I've been so far. I'm not usually this negative. I'm trying to give them a real shot here. I can recognize their strengths, which is songwriting. I think lifeless is the word I'm looking for when I'm hearing this. Like, there's like clapping in the background there, but like it's so faint it may as well not be there. Not that I'm a fan of excessive claps in my tracks, but it's like, why even bother if it's so buried in the mix and so just like sludgy, buried away. Like, everything is so loud and grating. I like that tambourine there. If you could find it. This tambourine is going on too long, though. I thought I liked it. We're going into the last, verse here, the outro, and it still just keeps going with no change. I'm sorry. Britpop is not for me. Yeah, it's I'm sorry. We're halfway through this album. It's not doing anything for me. Swamp Song version 1, 44 seconds. A little instrumental. Not that I would care, because instrumentally, it doesn't do much. Is that a harmonica, though? I do like me some harmonica. I think I actually kind of like that track, for as short as it was. I think the best word I'm looking for here is they feel like a band that is meant to play, I don't know, like in a pub or something, or in like a bar, I guess, the Americanized, side of things here. But we're sticking a pub. They're a pub band, and at the end of the day, that's the sound it feels like they've captured here. If that's for you, if you like the very kind of, I want to say, relatable sound to it, then I can see this being a jam. But personally, I'm not finding anything here too impressive, and production-wise, God, I cannot stand it. Songwriting, though, again, I will give it to them. They are great songwriters through and through. Some might say it's this one. I just wish production-wise it was a bit more clear, cleaner, maybe a bit more of a throwback sound. I'm sorry, it's just the 90s appeal to this thing really isn't doing much for me at all. It's like super dated. Like, I feel like this track, lyrically, melody-wise, deep in the melody there, you have a kind of like a cute 60s sort of pop, bubblegum pop ballad that could really make this thing, but it's just so washed out. Oh, what the hell is this? They said, let's do something interesting. Okay, I like that. I like that little deviation there. Come on, explore something different, please. Challenge the listener a little. I love, and I'm not like being sarcastic here, I genuinely love the melody of the vocals and the songwriting. I think it is actually like mind-boggling how good that is, and yet at the same time, on the other side, you've got, I'm sorry, just this instrumentation that I just wish was a lot more focused. I feel like I'm at two odds here, because I can't deny the fact that like there's some really great songwriting and some really great melodies buried in this thing, but that's just it. They're buried, quite literally buried under dated production. And I'm really liking this track as it goes on, though. And that guitar, so buried there. But I wish it was, I like it. I like what I'm hearing. Just wish it was there. I don't know, that track, it really tugged on me on both sides here. I gotta say, there's a lot I loved about it. There's a lot I didn't like about it. I do think that is one of the best tracks so far. Let's go to Cast No Shadow. I'm still trying to give an open eye here. Maybe this is a grower of an album. Maybe I just need to adjust to it. I will give it more listens. That I promise. Oh, I like that. Those backup vocals there, very sweet, very gentle. This track so far isn't as As blustered. Oh, I like this much more dialed in ballad. I'm loving this much more like gentle approach to the music here. It is certainly a much more welcome addition to things. And it feels very kind of heart-wrenching, the delivery. Some really great overdubbing on this one too, vocally. Oh, this track is making me take back everything I'm saying so far because this is beautiful. I really like I said, this one much more dialed back. It's much sweeter. Doesn't feel nearly as overblown production-wise. Certainly has that sweeter 60s sound too. Much more honed in, I would say. While still having that kind of like edgy, depressed 90s aesthetic. Alright, yeah, that was probably one of the best on the album so far. I think the dialed back production, like I said, certainly serves Oasis a lot better. Maybe, you know, less crushed, less overstuffed instrumentation. Really lets their songwriting come through a lot better. She's Electric, though, is this track here. 154 million streams, another hit, it would seem, for them. Oh, I like this melody. A bit rougher, a bit more edgy. For some reason reminded me of Iggy Pop. I don't know why. The Passenger. Very Lennon-esque vocals. I like the thumping of this one. The melody. Much more driven. A lot of cousins. Oh my god, it's quite the family tree here. I like this one too. I actually think, I don't know, the second half of this album seems to be coming through a little bit more. Oh. I feel like that was ripped right from the Beatles there. Those gentle ahs. Let's go to Morning Glory. I think She's Electric, like I said, much more dial-back production serves them well because the songwriting comes in much stronger. It's much sweeter, and I like the melody of that one a lot too. For some reason, really reminded me of like Iggy Pop, The Passenger. I think that kind of driven melody kind of tied into a Britpop sound. But Morning Glory, let's keep it going. Man, this one's, like I said, very noisy, like some of these early tracks. Intentionally so, it would seem this time. We're in some sort of stadium. A little Beatles reference there. Tomorrow Never Knows. Certainly honoring their influence there. I don't think they hold a candle though. There's that title drop. This one is so like abrasive in its sound, much more intentional it would seem in the mix. Super rough. Melody wise, nothing here is really grabbing me though, if we're being honest here. Just kind of feels like aimless drivel. Wow, this one feels like it just keeps going, doesn't it? We're at 4 minutes, and the first couple minutes really drove home this chorus. Here we are at a 5-minute track, just never ends, it feels like. And again, ear piercing to a degree that is just obnoxious. Those guitars. Yeah, I could really do without that track, or at least shortened and much more polished and clear. Let's go to Swamp Song 2. It's only 39 seconds. Don't really get this one and Swamp Song 1. I don't understand their purpose in the album. A little bluesy, that instrumental in the background there. And let's go in to the final track here, which I actually am looking forward to, because this track here, to close things out, is 7.5 minutes long, 431 million streams. I'm expecting, given its length, given its amount of streams combined, you know, I'm expecting a pretty mammoth of a track. And maybe this will be a track that closes things on a high note and, you know, leaves things more positive than negative in the end for me. Because overall, this album has left me very conflicted. So let's close it out. Champagne, Supernova. A nice wave sound coming in from the Swamp Song.
How many special people change? How many lives are living
Much more stripped back, much more sweeter.
while we were getting high? Slowly walking down the hall, faster than a cannonball. Where we
Again,
while we were getting high.
the reverby, kind of center-focused vocals that are still a little muffled really add to the kind of live sound that I have actually enjoyed from the album.
Someday you will find. Someday you will find me. Caught beneath the landslide.
And a very sweet chorus here.
In a champagne supernova, a champagne supernova in the sky.
Oh. Giving way to a very beautiful passage here. Very gentle.
Wake up the dawn and ask her why. A dream
Very live kind of sound, like I said.
that's tear away now from your eyes.
And it's working a lot better with a softer focus. Oh. Splashing into it. A contrast between the quiet and the loud here. Now that I can get on board with. Because it works. It's a good juxtaposition. A much more monumental, kind of earned sound this time. Oh yeah. See, now that is a focused solo here for once. Feels properly mixed. Very rustic kind of guitar too. How are they going to stretch this out? How are they going to stretch this out for 7.5 minutes, I wonder? Because we're 4 minutes in, and they're kind of just repeating themselves, though, at this point. Getting a little worried, because I do like this track so far. Might overstay its welcome. Oh, man, this guitar. That knoll. Just soaring. Very electric. Very visceral. Okay. I'm liking this outro here. Wonder if it's gonna rise or will it descend? Feel like it's gonna get quieter. Slow things down. Very dialed back and gentle outro. I really like that cycling sort of vocal there. Oh. Okay, down to a drum line. Very stripped back here. Certainly a climactic finish, a very monumental, grand sounding track that honestly I will say 7.5 minutes, it did in fact stick the landing. I was a little worried at the 4 minute mark because I thought it was just going to kind of repeat to the point of nauseation and mindless meandering, but instead it kind of sucked the landing and worked in an outro that was very soft, very beautiful, and a nice kind of stripped back one by one sort of approach that I feel like really gives this kind of finality to the album. That being said, let's speak on the album as a whole. You watched this far, you are a fan of Oasis. It is no secret, I am not a fan of Oasis. I was trashing them pretty hard at the beginning, and I apologize if you are a fan because, like I said, there is certainly stuff here that I do enjoy. I did like a few of the tracks here, as you could see, but it's probably about 50-50 overall on what I thought of this album in terms of the songs I liked and the songs I disliked. Because songwriting-wise, they are a pretty talented band. They got some great lyrics. They're very sweet. They're very melodic, which their melodies are beautiful when they are very sweet and dialed back and pretty. I feel like that's when they are at their best. They're much more honed in. But then, on the other side of things, the production here is very dated on a lot of these tracks. It is very muffled. It is very abrasive to the point where it is pretty obvious that the mixing is the issue of this album, because these guitars are so ear-piercing at times, and other instruments are just buried by them and so washed out that they certainly just feel like they just aren't even there. That tambourine, like I mentioned earlier in the album, or the clap effects that they have where you could hear them very, very buried in the mix, and I feel like without headphones on would just get completely lost on the speaker, because those grating guitars and the pummeling drums at times just feel so overblown. On top of that, the vocals as well sometimes are very flat. I'm not sure what it is, or they are so center focused and so drenched in reverb that they kind of feel like they are disconnected from the rest of the mix. So my point is, my biggest negative for the album is its mixing is just way too blown out and kind of disproportionate to the rest of the album, which is a shame because songwriting wise, like I said, and melodies, there is a lot of great material here. But even if you take that out, let's put that aside for a second, my gripes. I also think that there are some tracks here that could be just left off entirely. Roll With It didn't do anything for me. Hello feels like a decent opener, but again, wasn't anything that kind of took hold of me. It wasn't until we got to, track 3, Wonderwall, which I do think lyrically and melodically it is pretty sweet. And then, of course, Don't Look Back in Anger onward. There are some decent tracks that I really enjoyed. Don't Look Back in Anger, Cast No Shadow, I thought was actually really sweet. I loved how dialed back that was. Some might say a similar kind of thing to Cast No Shadow. And Champagne Supernova, it certainly wraps things up with a very powerful, in-your-face, quiet, loud sort of delivery that I think actually works. But unfortunately, the loud aspects of that track feel intentional, while the kind of loud, grating guitars and production isn't intentional in a lot of the album. It feels like it feels kind of misguided, I would say. But I apologize if you are an Oasis fan, because at the end of the day, I do want to be completely real with you. I don't want to pretend here. Maybe it's just not for me. So if you like it, that's great. But I certainly don't. But as always, that does it for today's video. If you liked this video, please hit like, subscribe, follow along. If you didn't like, hit dislike. That's okay. I'm fine with dislikes, because at the end of the day, you can judge me as much as I could judge this, as long as it is in good faith. However, the next album we are going to be checking out for Rocktober is going to be an album that is in the background here, an album that I've never listened to. I picked this up at a thrift store many years back. A friend gave it to me and said it looked kind of neat, and I agreed because I've seen the album cover. I know the artist Meatloaf. I've never checked out this album, and I thought if I have the cassette, I might as well give it a listen for Rocktober. And that, of course, being Meatloaf's, if you could see it there, Bat Out of Hell, which we will be covering next. But, as always, my name is Rennie Joe. I appreciate you watching, and I'm signing off.